Hello and welcome to another of our Bloomberg NEF 2020 Pioneers presentations. Each year, Bloomberg NEF names 10 game-changing companies from the field of energy, transportation, and sustainability from across the world. Usually, our pioneers have been operating for no more than 10 years, and they generally have annual sales of under 50 million US dollars. All of our pioneers must offer a product or service that is new, different, and disruptive. We then have an expert panel evaluating the nominations based on three main criteria: the level of innovation, the potential to scale, and the momentum to grow their business. So in today's segment, it's my pleasure to welcome Doron Myersdorf, CEO of StoreDot. StoreDot is an Israel-based company that manufactures ultra-fast charging batteries that can be used, for instance, in electric vehicles. So in a moment, we'll hear from Doron on what they're working on at StoreDot. And then, as always, I'll grab him for a brief Q&A afterwards. And on that note, Doron, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So StoreDot is, as you said, a startup in Israel that focuses on new materials for batteries, with the goal of charging a battery really, really fast in a matter of minutes to a full charge. So the vision is that when a driver of an electric vehicle needs to recharge, the experience of the driver will be exactly like fueling. So you would go into a charging station like you would go into a gas station, and you will, in 5 minutes, be fully charged for another 300 or 400 kilometers, whatever your car allows. But the idea is that the materials in the battery and the chemistry inside the battery is new. It's new in the sense that we replace mostly the graphite in the anode of the battery that typically is problematic in terms of fast charging because of the resistance and the metallization that is happening there. We are replacing it with metalloids such as tin, silicon, germanium. These are materials that are known to have a faster diffusion of the ions. So this is a new chemistry of the battery that is safe and allows to fully charge your vehicle in 5 minutes. And this is why this is a game changer, because until recently it was given that you cannot charge fast a car or any lithium-ion battery because of the safety concerns, and because it would basically kill the battery if you do it too fast. With our materials, this is becoming a feasible solution. So we allow drivers to have an experience that is exactly like fueling.
Well, Doron, thank you so much for the brief overview of StoreDot. Bloomberg NEF, in our annual long-term electric vehicle outlook, we forecast that EV sales, new EV sales, will make up 58% by 2040. So obviously that's a huge increase to what we're seeing today, but still there's some big barriers to mass adoption. For instance, you know, the time that it takes to charge a battery, the range, and even availability of charging infrastructure. I'd be curious to hear, what is your take on the pace of mass adoption of electric vehicles, and how does your work at StoreDot, how do you aid that process?
I think the number one barrier today for an adoption of an electric vehicle is the inconvenience of charging. So, you know, the vehicle is so much better on many levels. It's much more efficient and it's quiet, and the whole experience is much better for the driver. But when it comes to a travel that is, let's say, over the weekend, where you know that you need your full range of 400 kilometers, and you're worried that when you reach your destination, you need to spend several hours in some gas station, a charging station, then of course this is just for this reason alone, people do not buy the vehicle. With a solution that enables you to fully charge in 5 minutes, then this whole anxiety goes away. Also, there's a new anxiety, by the way, which is the charging anxiety, the queuing anxiety, that you would reach there and there will be several cars that are waiting. So it may be several hours before you can even start charging because of the lines. So, we'd already see it in several places in Europe. If it's 5 minutes, then the whole queuing theory around it is exactly like is happening today with fueling, and the whole real estate model of the gas station starts to make sense again when it becomes charging stations. So eliminating this barrier would dramatically enhance the adoption rate of electric vehicles, and it would take several years because we introduced the battery now, but we also need the infrastructure. We also need the charging stations to be really strong, let's say 350 plus kilowatt per station. And this is something that will take several years. So I think in 2025, roughly, we will start seeing the hockey stick of adoption of electric vehicle with ultra-fast charging.
Doron, actually on the idea of the need for more charging infrastructure, are you in any way collaborating with charging infrastructure providers?
So yes, of course, one of our strategic investors is BP, and the whole idea of why they invested in StoreDot last year was because they understand that they need to repurpose the 18,000 plus gas station or forecourts into charging stations. And this also requires an upgrade to the infrastructure of the electricity that is coming into this facility, but also in each charging station, you need a very powerful device. So definitely there's a lot of partnership that is going on the advocacy of ultra-fast charging, as well as the planning of, what are the strategic locations where you would need inside London, for example, an upgrade of the infrastructure, including the establishment of new substations that would allow much more power into the forecourt.
Doron, you touched on the technology that you're using in the batteries. Can you tell us a bit more about the process and just the development of those new batteries? How long did it take you? How did you find this combination that made it so ultra fast charging and this working?
So this is, first of all, it's a major challenge, and some of the hurdles we are still facing. This is not an easy task, and all the large companies, if you think about LG Chem or Samsung SDI or CATL, everybody is working on it, including Tesla, and they're investing billions of dollars into this problem. So for a startup that is out of Israel to basically solve all the problems in several years is a very difficult task, and we haven't solved all of them. But I must say that the combination that we have here of 35 PhDs out of the team of 120 professionals that are focusing on all the elements of the battery, which is the anode, the cathode, the electrolyte, and the separator. In each of them, we have a core team of experts, people who have written papers in Nature and such that are researching the basic elements of the battery, and we are redesigning them so they would be optimized for ultra-fast charging. So what I've mentioned about the metalloids, the same thing is true for the electrolyte, that it needs some organic materials that upgrade the capabilities of the voltage and the sustainability of the electrolyte inside the battery. So I would say that what is unique about StoreDot is the combination of working on the nanomaterials, which is the metalloids that I've mentioned. So let's say nanosilicon, for example. And if you're asking me about challenges, the supply chain of nanosilicon is a major challenge for us. And this is what we are working on with some of our partners to see how we scale up the supply chain of nano particles of silicon, for example. And then we also combine it with the organic synthesis of the materials that protect the nanoparticles, such as polymers or other organic coatings that enable the ultra-fast charging and make sure that when you introduce this high power into the active material, it is protected, it doesn't swell, it doesn't crack, and it can sustain many, many cycles, let's say thousands of cycles that are required in the electric vehicle application. So I would say that we've solved many of the elements of the chemistry and the technology, and now we face the challenge of scaling it up and taking it into mass production. And this takes, again, several years together with our partners. And this is why I believe we'll be in mass production for an electric vehicle somewhere in the next couple of years. For smaller applications such as drones or power banks or even scooters, we are already producing our first generation and we are shipping samples so the customers can really feel the capabilities of the ultra-fast charging.
So can you maybe talk a little bit more about other use cases and applications of your batteries besides the electric vehicles?
Yes, it's very difficult to jump immediately into being a commercial solution for an electric vehicle because this is like the toughest environment in terms of the temperature range and in terms of the safety that is required and also the 5 minutes that we are targeting. So we are starting small. We have some power banks that are charging in 5 minutes. We're working on some smartphone applications. Last year, we demonstrated the first ever scooter that charges in 5 minutes. Next month, we're going to do like a virtual launch of the drone that charges in 5 minutes. We already have it tested in the field, and this is an amazing experience to see a drone that typically charges in 4 to 5 hours. And we charge it in 5 minutes, and it spends half an hour in the air in very heavy winds. So this was a really an exciting day for us. This happened yesterday, actually. So all these applications are things in the way for our vision that the experience of the driver would be exactly like fueling.
Doron, I'm curious to hear about the environmental impact and the sustainability aspect that you alluded to earlier on. Like, how do your batteries differ to conventional lithium-ion batteries?
Unfortunately, we don't have, I would say, the full green solution for the battery. We are still a lithium-ion battery. So many of the elements, such as cobalt in the cathode, that needs to be recycled. We are also looking at that. We are looking to reduce the amount of cobalt, so going from NMC 622 to 811, like most of the industry is looking at. This is something that we are working on, so there'll be minimal impact on the environment. But this is not a fully green battery. Everything that we add to the battery, such as the organic coating or the additives, is fully organic and is fully recyclable. But we still have the traditional elements of the lithium and the cobalt and the nickel that exist in a lithium-ion battery. We still face these challenges that we would need second life first for this battery, and then we would need solutions to extract these expensive or rare materials so they would be reused in future generations. We are still part of that circular economy that is required in order to make this happen.
If we compare your batteries to conventional lithium-ion batteries, according to BNEF, the price for a battery pack is currently at around $156 per kilowatt hour. We're forecasting that by 2023, it's going to reach the $100 mark. How do your batteries compare to those conventional lithium-ion batteries in terms of price? And do you see, will there be a big advantage for users in that sense?
When we look at the bill of material of our battery, I would say 80% of the elements are exactly the same as a traditional lithium-ion battery. So in terms of the NMC that we use in the cathode and in terms of the basic electrolyte materials, we are very similar. Where we differ is that we replace the graphite with these metalloids that I've mentioned. So the move from Gen 1, what I mentioned, to Gen 2 is exactly the price cost reduction, where we are trying to reach a similar level to the price of graphite. But if we go back to the challenge of the supply chain, this is why we need partnerships in scaling up the nanoparticles, because this is where the cost adder is today for us. So we do add a couple of dollars for each battery where we need to process the silicon ourselves. But if we are talking about many tons of silicon that needs to be processed, then the price of raw silicon is actually very cheap. It's like one of the most available materials that are really not expensive and can be very similar and even cheaper in mass production than graphite. So at the end of the day, I look at us as very similar costs to traditional lithium-ion batteries. Maybe in the beginning a little bit more expensive due to the supply chain challenges, but down the road we are not more expensive than any traditional battery.
You mentioned just now the supply chain challenges. You know, looking ahead 5 years down the road, where would you like to see StoreDot, or where do you plan to be with the business?
Our vision includes also the ability to have capacity. We call it captive capacity. So we can actually deliver on commitments to customers such as Daimler, who is also one of our strategic investors. TDK is a strategic investor, also Samsung. So we have 4 strategic investors that together with them, we are working on the ecosystem and trying to build a company 5 years down the road where we would have the technology already commercial in, let's say, an AMG car, for example, or a Daimler car, with the ability to produce the batteries ourselves with some licensing of the nanoparticle scale-up to our supply chain partners. So overall, we want to be vertically integrated and able to sign contracts with the electric vehicle makers and also guarantee the capacity and deliver the battery cells to them.
Mentioning some of your investors and partners, what should other investors know about and take away from StoreDot?
As you started, what you're looking for in a disruptive company, this is really a game changer in the sense that, you know, going back to the experience of the driver and the barriers to adoption of electric vehicles. Once there is a solution out there that eliminates the range anxiety, then this is definitely something that is considered to be a company that can be a unicorn and that can really change the world in terms of the adoption of electric vehicles. So I think the reason that we have such an impressive array of investors is that we are delivering on this vision that you know, all vehicles will be fully electric and the charging experience will be exactly like it is today. When these two things are combined, that the whole world around us will be very different. We won't hear any noise in the street other than birds. We won't have you know, the pollution that is coming out of the exhaust of the combustion engines. So the whole experience of being outdoors, again, assuming COVID-19 is behind us, will be really different than it is today.
And lastly, Doron, what does it mean for StoreDot to be named a 2020 BNEF Pioneer?
So I know that there are many, many candidates. So it's really, I would say, impressive that we made this list. I think the reason is the vision that is very, very strong, and the fact that we are delivering over the last several years. Each time we deliver a milestone from power banks to scooters to drones to moving from one generation to the second generation. And because this is such a difficult task that we took up, it's actually the most difficult one because it's the materials. Once you take the materials as a task, you are taking the most difficult assignment. So being recognized for that by Bloomberg, I think it's actually, it shows that we are doing the right thing and that actually we are on the right path. And this is very encouraging for us, and we are very proud to be on this list.
Doron, on that note, again, congratulations to StoreDot, to you and your team, and we'll look forward to those super, super fast charging batteries coming our way soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you very much.